My name is Elowen Hart, a 32-year-old seamstress living in the quiet town of Ashbourne Creek. My days are simple. I sew dresses for the women in town, take care of my daughter, Rosie, and wait for my husband, Marcus, to return from his work at the local carpentry shop. Our home is small but warm, filled with the soft scent of pinewood and the gentle laughter of a child who means the world to me. Marcus has always appeared to be a responsible man, steady, reliable, someone who carries the weight of our little family with calm shoulders. And Rosie, though often sick and fragile, is the heart that keeps me strong. Every night, when I tuck her into bed, I feel grateful for the love that surrounds us. Life in Ashbourne Creek feels peaceful, almost untouched, like nothing could ever disturb the fragile harmony of our home. Life in the Hartwell household moved with a gentle rhythm, the kind that made Elowen believe nothing could ever shatter their little world. Every morning began the same way, Marcus waking before sunrise, quietly moving around the kitchen, preparing a warm cup of coffee just the way Elowen liked it. Mild, a little sweet, always with a small swirl of milk. He would place it on the table with a soft smile, as if it were his daily promise of love. Breakfast was their family ritual. Rosie, with her cheeks still pale from her recurring illness, would try to brighten the room with stories from school. Stories about her teacher, her drawings, and the imaginary adventures she wished she could go on once she felt better. Elowen would brush her daughter's hair gently while Marcus packed her lunchbox, humming an old tune Rosie adored. Weekends were for slow, simple joys. A blanket spread under the oak tree near the creek. Fresh sandwiches. Paper cups of lemonade. Marcus lying back with his hands behind his head while Elowen read stories aloud. In the evenings, they curled up on the sofa, watching old movies or helping Rosie complete her puzzle sets. Marcus kept leaving little love notes for Elowen, on the mirror, in the flower jar, under her pillow. Silly, sweet, comforting. Elowen trusted him completely. She never checked his messages, never felt the need to look at his e-wallet or ask where he had been. Trust, to her, was a quiet certainty, the kind Marcus had nurtured for years. They were even planning a beach trip for Rosie once she recovered. Elowen pictured the ocean breeze, the warm sand, Rosie's laughter. Everything felt peaceful. Almost too peaceful. A calm so perfect, it made the coming shock even more devastating. That night, everything changed. Rosie grew suddenly worse. Her fever shot up to 40 degrees, and her breathing became shallow and quick. Elowen's heart nearly stopped as she lifted her daughter into her arms and rushed her to Ashbourne Creek Hospital. The doctors took Rosie in immediately, placing her under oxygen while nurses prepared medication. Elowen tried calling Marcus. Once. Twice. 5 times. No answer. She told herself he must be in an urgent meeting, maybe stuck in traffic, maybe somewhere he couldn't step out. She clung to that hope while pacing the cold, bright corridor that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Then the receptionist approached her with a clipboard. "Ma'am, we need a deposit before continuing the treatment." Of course. Their medical fund, carefully saved month after month, more than $2,000 each month just for emergencies like this, would cover it. Elowen opened the joint account on her phone. Balance, $42.17. Her breath caught. Her chest tightened. This had to be a mistake. She refreshed the app. Same number. Her fingers trembled as she opened the transaction history. And then she saw it. Transfer. 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 Dozens of them. All to the same name. Talia Monroe. And below each transfer, the same note. Just helping a friend. Her vision blurred. Her ears rang. The hallway around her felt like it was tilting sideways. How long had this been going on? Where was the money they saved for Rosie? Why hadn't Marcus said anything? Elowen switched to Marcus's personal account. The balance was nearly empty there too. A cold fear spread through her body, anger wrapped tightly around betrayal. While their daughter was fighting fevers, injections, and sleepless nights, Marcus was sending money to another woman. Regularly, secretly, without a single explanation. Hands shaking, She called him again. This time he picked up. But instead of quiet office noise, loud music pulsed in the background, bass, laughter, clinking glasses. Elowen. Marcus sounded distracted. I'm with a friend. She needed help. I'll explain later. A friend. A she. The same she receiving thousands of dollars behind her back. Elowen couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Her entire world narrowed to a single point of disbelief. She ended the call without a word. Slowly, mechanically, she walked to the glass window of the pediatric ward. Rosie lay inside, tiny, fragile, fighting her fever with a strength that broke Elowen's heart. And as she stared at her daughter through the reflection of hospital lights, she understood with painful clarity that her world had just collapsed. When Marcus finally arrived at the hospital, exhausted and drenched from the rain, Elowen didn't even let him step fully inside the room. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him out into the quiet hallway, away from Rosie's bed and the machines still beeping steadily. Her voice trembled, but it wasn't from fear, it was from betrayal. Marcus, she said, holding up her phone with the bank history, who is Talia Monroe? And why is all of our money, Rosie's money, in her account? Marcus froze. For a second, he looked like a child caught doing something unforgivable. His lips parted without a sound, then closed again. His shoulders slumped. Elowen. I messed up. He covered his face with both hands, then forced himself to speak. I reconnected with Talia online. It started casually. She said she was struggling. I wanted to help. I didn't think it would go so far. So far. Elowen's voice cracked, echoing in the empty corridor. Marcus, 7 months of helping? Thousands of dollars? Why didn't you tell me? He shook his head quickly, desperately. It wasn't like that. I swear. It was just money. Nothing else. But his eyes refused to meet hers, and that silence between words felt heavier than any confession could. Elowen stepped back as if struck. Marcus, was it only money? Or was there more? He swallowed hard, jaw tightening. Elowen, I don't know what you want me to say. And in that moment, she got her answer. It wasn't the empty bank accounts that shattered her. It wasn't even the months of lies. It was the fact that while her daughter lay barely breathing, burning with fever, he had chosen to be somewhere else, for someone else. Her voice lowered, steady but hollow. I need you to leave the house. I need space. I need time. Right now, I can't even look at you. Marcus's face crumpled. Tears streamed down, mixing with the rain still clinging to him. Elowen, please. I'm sorry. I can fix this. Just don't push me away. But she turned from him, unable to bear the sight. Go, Marcus. Please. He reached out as if to touch her shoulder, but stopped halfway, defeated. Moments later, he walked down the dim hallway and out into the storm, each step heavier than the last. Back inside the room, Elowen sat beside Rosie, gently stroking her daughter's damp hair. The beeping machines, the cold fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic, all of it pressed down on her like a collapsing world. Through the window, she caught a final glimpse of Marcus disappearing into the rain. That was the moment she knew. Their family, once warm and whole, had finally broken. In the days after Rosie finally stabilized, Elowen packed a small suitcase and moved into her sister Margot's home. It was supposed to be temporary, just until she could breathe again, but even breathing felt difficult. The first nights were unbearable. She cried until sunrise, sitting on the edge of a borrowed bed, wondering how a life so carefully built could break so suddenly. She had no control over anything, her finances, her future, her marriage. The medical bills grew heavier each day, and the savings she trusted were gone, given away to someone she barely knew existed. Exhaustion wrapped around her like a cold blanket. She barely slept. She barely ate. Her hands shook whenever she tried to fill out hospital paperwork. Then one evening, while Elowen sat silently at the kitchen table, Margot placed a cup of warm tea in front of her and said gently, "Em kong sai vu. But don't let someone use your love to destroy who you are." Those words settled deep inside Elowen, heavier than grief but clearer than anything she had heard in weeks. For the first time, she looked honestly at her life. She had worked 2 jobs just to keep their home running. She had planned every doctor visit, every financial detail, every meal, every emergency. She had carried their family alone without ever asking for recognition. And Marcus? He had grown comfortable in that softness, so comfortable he believed he was entitled to betray it. Elowen finally understood. Her pain didn't come from losing him, but from losing the version of herself who believed she had to endure everything to keep the peace. Slowly, her heartbreak began turning into something new: clarity, strength, a quiet, rising determination. This wasn't the end. It was the moment she began reclaiming her life. Returning home after months of living with Margot felt strange at first. The house was quieter, lighter somehow, no longer filled with the weight of Marcus's excuses or her own suppressed exhaustion. Elowen opened the windows, let the cold Ashbourne Creek breeze sweep through, and made a quiet promise to herself: "I will rebuild my life piece by piece." She took on extra shifts at the cafe and accepted a part-time bookkeeping job for a local shop. It wasn't easy. Some nights she collapsed onto the couch, still wearing her coat, but every dollar helped her pay back Rosie's medical bills. She felt proud, even when tired. For the first time in years, she was standing on her own. To heal emotionally, she joined a therapeutic yoga class. At first her mind kept drifting back to the betrayal, to the nights she cried until sunrise. But week by week, as she learned to breathe deeply and quiet the storm inside her, she felt her heart loosen. She wasn't moving on yet, but she was moving forward. One evening, after class, she decided to start a small blog, just a place to write about her journey, share simple English vocabulary about feelings, and tell the truth she once hid. To her shock, people from all over the world began reading. Messages of support filled her inbox. Some thanked her for helping them heal. Others shared their own stories of betrayal and recovery. For the first time in a long time, Elowen didn't feel alone. She also reconnected with Leon Hale, an old friend from high school who had become a photographer. Their conversations were light and uncomplicated, no pressure, no expectations. Leon encouraged her creativity, reminded her that she was more than a broken marriage. He never flirted, never overstepped. He simply offered a safe space to breathe. Meanwhile, Marcus changed in ways Elowen hadn't expected. He never missed a single payment for Rosie's care. He stayed consistent, respectful, and painfully aware of the damage he had caused. He cut ties with Talia completely, began therapy, sold personal belongings to pay back part of what he had taken, and never once asked Elowen to return to him. His silence was no longer avoidance, it was accountability. A full year passed before Marcus requested to meet her. Not at home, not at a cafe, but at the small park where they first picnicked as teenagers. He looked older, gentler. "I'm not asking for us back," he said. "I just want you to know I finally understand what I destroyed, and what you deserved." For the first time, his voice held honesty rather than excuses. Standing there, Elowen realized her heart no longer clenched when she looked at him. She had healed enough to see the past without bleeding from it. And so she chose forgiveness, not because she was weak, but because she had grown strong enough to offer it. The final scene unfolds at Ashbourne Lake, where the water glows softly under the late afternoon sun. Elowen stands at the edge of the dock, the breeze brushing against her hair, carrying with it the quiet scent of pine and distant rain. After everything she has endured, the silence no longer feels frightening. It feels earned. She reflects on her journey, a path she never expected to walk. From peace, to trust, to betrayal, to heartbreak, to loneliness, to self-realization, to healing, to reunion. It was not a straight path, nor a gentle one. But every step carved a new layer of strength inside her. Elowen speaks to the viewer as if confiding in a close friend. I learned that trust can shatter in a single moment, she says, watching the sunset ripple across the water. But I also learned that people can change, not through words, but through actions repeated over time. If someone truly regrets, grows, and earns your forgiveness, then sometimes, love deserves a chance to return. She smiles. Not the smile of someone who has forgotten the past, but of someone who has finally outgrown its weight. Behind her, Rosie laughs as she tosses pebbles into the lake. Marcus stands a few steps away, not trying to be close, not trying to rush anything, just present, patient, and grateful. Their family is not perfect. It may never be. But it is a family rebuilt, brick by honest brick. Elowen turns back to the audience with a gentle question. If you were in my place, would you give a second chance? Or would you walk away? Then the screen fades softly to the final call. Share your thoughts in the comments, and follow the channel for more emotional English listening stories to improve your English.